Eric, welcome aboard to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Ari. It's good to be here.
Okay, so we're going to go down the rabbit hole, but eventually we will come up. Okay, so we kind of know that our phones have chips in them.
A lot, yeah.
Um, quite a few, quite a few. We kind of know that those chips are manufactured in China, some of them. And we also kind of know that the US government got their underpants in a bunch about some modem chip that half of electronics use, and they're like, oh, what if this has a backdoor to the Chinese government? So
hmm
we're kind of like, oh, do we need to be thinking about chip security now? Is that a thing?
Well, we absolutely should be, and we should have been thinking about it for a long time, but it's definitely been a tough problem for people to figure out. And, I think I have a solution to that.
Okay, so let's break this down. There's a few problems here. One is I had a friend. He manufactured electronics. He's much smarter than I when it comes to all things electronics. He showed me this chips, and he says to me, and it's a small little black thing, and it looks like it has like metal legs, right? It's pretty
hmm
cool. And he shows me this thing, and he says, Ari, is indistinguishable from an original chip. I paid about $5,000 from this to buy it. When he put it in an X-ray machine, there was nothing in it. It was just plastic. They sold
Oof,
him.
that's a rough
They sold him.
surprise after
They
5,000.
sold him 5,000. Some of these chips are expensive, right?
Incredibly expensive. That's why they're
So
so valuable to spoof and to counterfeit and to try to generate alternatives for.
I wish I had my little have. This is pretty cool. Not everybody watches this on video, but basically, right, you have this thing over here. So for example, you have a chip over here.
Mhm.
And then what if this chip over here is just a piece of plastic? There's no logic or kind of intelligence in it. And then you're sending out something to a customer, and the customer's like, this doesn't work. And then you get it back, and it's like, well, we had a problem. We bought a fake chip.
Yeah, and
So
then the question is, whose fault was it? Whose problem is it? Who has to pay for it at the end of the day besides the consumer?
that's right. This has been an incredibly difficult problem for decades, right?
Yeah, decades.
Tell us about this. Why hasn't this been solved yet?
It's because it's either too expensive or it's too hard. There are complicated ways that you can put security features right on the chip at the silicon level to say, yep, this is authentic. But one of the challenges, that security feature either degrades with time or it's too expensive to put on chips that are really the most important chips in our daily lives. We all drive cars with semiconductor devices in them. Our lives depend on 5, 10 cent pieces of silicon that there's no
Wait.
profit.
Hold on. I don't understand. On one hand, this chip costs $5,000. On the other hand, there's no profit. How do those things live together?
Yeah, semiconductor industry manufactures the whole range of devices that our lives are vertically integrated upon. Just everything from the 5 cent microcontroller in your transmission of your car to, the expensive chips that are in our computers or in the AI servers that are of late blooming up everywhere. Each one of those instances is important to know that it's authentic and that it's secure. And that could be anything from, protecting you as you drive to making sure that your financial data is secure as it bounces around the servers of Visa. With today's technology, it's just been too expensive or too complicated to secure the silicon supply chain to know that you're getting authentic parts that are reliable and will deliver the capability that you expect them to have.
So this is scary shit, right? I know Obama is kind of like, you know, the guy behind this movie. So let's not get too political. I don't know yeah, some people love him, some people hate him. Doesn't matter. But he did put out a movie. And in this movie, the Tesla cars became these mass weapons of murder where the Tesla cars would start running into people. And this was supposedly Chinese
Mhm.
basically hacking the car and then, basically coming in through a back door, telling the car to basically drive into people.
That's the
Is
doomsday scenario that, people think about and see in the movies and like, oh, well, that's never going to really happen in daily
Can it
life.
happen though?
It does. And so there are
Whoa.
stories on a
Hold
week
on.
by week
What do you
basis
mean
where,
it does?
so there was a story recently about a month ago about Trojan hardware being installed in solar power inverters that were put there by the Chinese government.
And who uses solar power inverters?
A lot of people in California, particularly Silicon Valley, and these Trojan hardware were basically able to ping your cell phone as you're walking by them, pull data directly from them.
Okay, what does that mean though?
That means that your information isn't safe no matter where you go because you don't know where there can be Trojan hardware, there can be things that are maliciously trying to intervene in your daily life. That's scary.
So the tinfoil hat people got it right. The
They
only
kind of
way
did.
way to secure your phone. So this Yeti right over here, I don't know where
Mhm.
it's manufactured, but if it has a chip in it which can basically scan my phone, the only way to keep my phone secure is to put it in a tinfoil hat, which is basically what we call a Faraday's cage. A Faraday's cage is a cage or some kind of element which doesn't allow electro
Mhm.
interference or signals to get in or out. And if you took aluminium and you just wrap this up in aluminium, that would act as a Faraday cage. That's the tinfoil hat.
That's the solution. We're at the tinfoil hat stage of our society.
Okay, fuck off. That's all I can say at this stage. Fuck off. When did the world just go batshit crazy?
It was right around mid 2000s. So, thousands when the counterfeit spree really started. And what you saw in the late 2000s was this idea that we were going to protect the supply chains. We weren't going to do anything on the manufacturing side. We were just going to make sure that everything was passed off and paperwork signed that where we were getting things from was authentic and certified. But counterfeit, malicious hardware, it's cat and mouse. And just saying you have to get around paperwork, that's an easy one for counterfeiters to get around. And
It
so
is.
now we're at the stage where even those prevention mechanisms can be bypassed to the extent that DoD has recognized that 15% of their devices contain some amount of counterfeit or Trojan hardware in them. And they spend billions to try to catch that.
I don't want to get political, but without getting political, there was a supply chain attack that will go down in the history of counterterrorism for the next 1,000 years. And this happened in the last 12 months. That was a supply chain attack. This is exactly what we're
Absolutely.
talking about.
Yeah. You want to make sure that when you get this new cell phone, it's going to do what it's supposed to do and nothing extra.
Nothing extra. Cell phones, beepers.
Yeah. And so this is the scary thing. And it's everything from, as we're talking about like handheld devices, things in infrastructure, to even the worst case scenarios, which, Fukushima, after they did investigation there, they identified counterfeit hardware in the coolant pumps that was not rad hard, still functional, but not rad hard. And so therefore they failed prematurely.
So let's think about this, right? We've got infrastructure that cleans our water. We've got infrastructure that makes power. We've got missiles that have control systems that can launch or not launch them. If any one of these fail at the hardware level, forget software. That's a whole
Yeah,
different nightmare.
exactly.
We've kind of wrapped our heads around the software cat and mouse game. The hardware game is really interesting. If any one of those hardwares becomes susceptible to
Mhm.
a competing nation, right? It can be really dangerous. We can suddenly have too much chlorine in our water. We can suddenly lose power. We can suddenly lose communication. In fact, I think Obama's main point was that if we lose too many of the systems that make us human, we become animals. And if
Yeah,
we don't have power, we don't
absolutely.
have communication, we don't have food and water, we basically descend into anarchy. That was Obama's point. And his point was, so really that film was about the fact that there's this modem chip and half of those modems are made by China and we don't know if they're secure. So that means
Mhm.
half of the electronics in the US are susceptible to Chinese hacking. And that's why Obama made the movie. But this is a much broader problem, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's systemic in our modern digital lives. And how do we solve this?
Okay. So, so how do we solve this, Eric? So, okay, in full disclosure, we do keep this show at a kind of like high level, not to go too technical.
Yeah, yeah.
But we talked 2 minutes before the show. You know that I'm a manufacturing guy who has basically done this my whole life. I work for Siemens. I design chips for Apple, for Qualcomm, for Honeywell. Basically everything that's in anybody's phones, I helped design that by creating algorithms that would check the hardware. What I can tell the audience is that I've come across this problem and it's been an unsolvable problem for over 2 decades. So the magic that you're about to hear right now is a problem that engineers across the world have been trying to solve for a very long time.
And you set up the boundary conditions perfectly. The challenge ahead of us is we want to secure every single semiconductor device, and we make billions of these per year. Anything from a 5-cent chip to a $30,000 chip. And you want to secure all of them. But we're still in a commercial environment for the most part, which means it's got to be cheap, it's got to be fast, and it can't really disrupt your product at the end of the day. So you can't take up chip real estate, you can't spend a lot of money on it. That's what makes this an incredibly hard problem to crack. And so that's where, what I've been working on for the last year is how do you use existing semiconductor manufacturing processes to intrinsically encode a security signature at the silicon level that you can then detect later on somewhere in the supply chain, maybe at a contract manufacturer, maybe when, the device is in your hand, and authenticate it and verify that it's has its integrity intact so that hasn't been altered in any way, shape, or form.
So let me translate that into something my grandma would understand. You guys have figured out a way to create a encrypted watermark that costs basically nothing on every single piece of electronics, and not just the electronics, but every single component in the electronics in the world at virtually zero cost.
That's the magic sauce. That's the, silver bullet that everyone's been looking for and we've cracked.
This is truly something incredible. I mean, if you're a terrorist, you should care about this because you don't want your shit exploding. But if you're a home, you're just an everyday Joe, then you also care about this because how do I know that I didn't just buy a fake iPhone or a fake Rolex or a fake whatever? Maybe the Rolex will be fake, but at least the electronics in it is real. That's a different problem. So this is huge. I mean, from home appliances that are expensive or maybe just dangerous, right? Maybe a chainsaw that's fake, to the stuff that cleans our water and decides what percentage of chlorine goes into the water that we drink. This is a big deal.
Yeah. And I think the biggest market for us is, like Obama's movie, it's like it's automotive. It's like you want to make sure that when you get in your car, it's going to operate the way you think it will. And if you do have an accident, you want to make sure that it functions the way it's supposed to keep you safe.
I mean, if
There's been a
I,
recent rash of counterfeit controllers for airbags that
oh
has
yeah,
led to billions of losses in the automotive industry, but also many lives. And that's become our mission is we are not doing this, we're doing it for a little bit because it's cool technology, but also because it has such an impact on our everyday lives and the people around us that this is our mission.
there's a few verticals of evil in the world as it
Mm,
pertains to this product specifically. Sure, there's going to be forces in the world that are going to take out a person and they're going to try and crash their car,
mm.
or maybe they're going to physically crash their car with another car, but there was a chip that turned off the airbag. So that's one type of evil. You and I probably don't need to worry about it. But there's another type of evil in the world, and that's greed.
Yeah. Parts manufactured by the lowest bidder. That's really where a lot of these issues stem from. The co-founder of my company, he was burnt by this whenever he purchased components from a reputable supplier, and turns out half of them were gray market parts that did not function.
So hold on. If it's a reputable supplier, what
Where do
went
the bad
wrong?
chips come from?
Yes, it's
And
literally the $1 million
that's
question.
the billion-dollar question, really.
This is true.
But, yeah, that's the challenge is there are so many leaky points in our supply chain that a lot of times, like, when you go on Amazon and you're like, "Okay, which thing do I wanna buy? This one's a few dollars cheaper, I'll buy that one. It looks the same, it functions the same, it'll be fine." And
Yeah,
that's the trap we find ourselves in
yes,
is when you break it down to authenticity, that's the difference.
yeah. And the problem is that when the buyers push the sellers to give them stuff fast that they don't have yet, or they don't have enough inventory, or other problems, then sometimes they're tempted to buy, even though they are reputable in
Mhm.
themselves,
Yeah.
they are sometimes tempted to buy from somebody else.
Yeah, they have to go to brokers and have to figure out like, "Hey, I need 100 of these, 1,000 of these parts. Do you have any?" It's like, "Well, there's a
So
box over here in the corner."
anytime that some of my good friends got screwed and then they talked to their supplier and they ask them, who did you buy this stuff from? Then it's like, we may have used a broker for this one.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's where he's like, so, supply chains leak and
Yeah.
sometimes people
Absolutely.
make bad decisions. Why? Because they're trying to fulfill a contract.
Yeah.
This
Exactly.
is this is where greed comes in. Like, so okay. So this is amazing, first of all. This, I think, is I hope that will come out. Obviously the problem with security software is that it helps the good guys and the bad guys. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. You always want it to help the good guys, but not the bad guys. But I'm not sure if that's possible, right? GPT goes out to everyone. Then the criminals use GPT to create more smart. I don't know if you know this, but they're using it to do better phishing attacks.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
In fact,
surprising, but yeah,
not
this
surprising. Yeah.
we
So
are
what's
entering into a
happening is
new
that they've
phase of cat and mouse. Yeah.
there's SaaS companies that create phishing attacks, right? You can buy software on the obviously in the dark web, and then you basically can do like call up a support line and say, "Hey, I'm trying to do a phishing attack right now, and my mark said this, and the software, oh, this is real, and then the software gave me this error. What do I do next to create this phishing attack?" And they'll walk you through it. They're
Wow.
selling software to do phishing. Yeah. Okay, this is real. Um,
Are you sure you want to be scaring your viewers this much?
Like, dude, 90% of the time I'm a positive, smiley guy. I'm smiling right now. Hopefully, they're watching the video and feeling very relaxed. Uh, yeah. The good news is, though, Eric, you guys are bringing something wonderful to the world. Usually, we don't say things that people make are wonderful because we don't promote on this show. Because this is really is exciting, and I've suffered from this problem myself. I'm gonna make a transgression and say that you all should look into the future of Eric's company, because I think there's something interesting there.
I appreciate it, Ari.
Absolutely. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been an
Thank you for
absolute
having me. This
delight.
is great.
There's one more question.
All right.
Okay. So this is the only question that we ask on the show that is pre-prepared, that everybody gets asked. Is a difficult question. If you had to go back to the hardest part of your life, anywhere, what advice would you give to yourself?
Keep your head down and keep going. It
Keep
gets
on
better.
trucking.
Keep on trucking.
This too shall pass.
Absolutely.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ari.